Hey, I've seen a lot recently about the simulation, about are we living in a simulation? And I really want to speak to this because I feel it's something I have so much experience with. I mean, you can go back in time to the days of Buddha, and Buddha said, we live in Maya, illusion. It's like a simulation, basically. Things are, what does illusion mean? If you look up the word illusion in the dictionary, it means things are not as they appear to be. And so we live in a simulation. We live in a structure that is not as it appears to be. And this is very true, but in our limited language, in our limited minds and imaginations, I'm sorry guys, but we do have limitations in our minds due to what we get exposed to, due to the culture that we've grown in. And we've grown in a very limiting separatist culture that thinks everything's mechanical. I mean, I'm not saying you believe this to be so, but when we grow up in a culture of separation, a culture that tells us it's all mechanics, everything's physical, this does this and that does that, and if you can't see it, it's not real. There are significant limits to our understanding of things. So when people say we live in a simulation, yes, we do, but it's not some evil simulation created by the lizard people. It's a simulation. And yes, okay, are we stuck here? You could say this is a prison planet, you could say this is a training ground, and you could say this is a playground. All three are equally true depending on where you're at. And so most people upon this earth are completely stuck here. Yes, they're completely trapped. They don't even realise that they have any power. So if you're in a victim mentality, of everything happens to me and I'm just always on a back foot and I'm just struggling to keep up, then yes, you're trapped here. If you don't realise that you are a co-creator, that you are literally God embodied in a separate fractal that's forgotten itself, and you're here to explore, to enjoy, to share, to relate, to experience being separate and remembering yourself as an interconnected being that isn't actually separate at all. This is some of the magic that we've got here. Okay, there's no there are nefarious plans. There are huge amounts of nefarious plans. There are people that are so utterly stuck in their own pain of separation that they've become utterly blind to the reality of who they are and what they are. And yet, they can return to it like that, just in a moment. Anyone can. And so I was listening to Darius Wright. Beautiful. Thank you, Darius. Really thank you for the things that you say, for standing in that place and trying to express the reality of where we're living, and that nobody is ultimately a victim. We are all creators of the reality we live in. We consent to everything that takes place. And where do I get the authority to say such things? Where do I get that authority? I get that authority in 37 years of deep psychedelic, meditative and inner work where, I mean, geez, back in the day, 5 grams of mushrooms was considered a heroic dose. And I've explored up to 25 dried grams now. And the places it takes me. And it's interesting, whereas Darius goes out of body very easily, for some reason in my training, I've been kept at the firmament. I've not been allowed to get beyond that. I have been out many times, or a handful of times. I've been in the arms of God. I've rested in the nature of creation. I've received, you know, when I was 26 and I had my second big, proper, full awakening, I received an entire guided tour of the entire galaxy, the entire universe. And I only wish I could have brought all that knowledge back with me. But we get to see, and this is, you know, awakening is when you find yourself in the still point, when all becomes quiet and you become everything and all being, and you see all creation from in its wholeness. You see how it works. You see the wiring under the board, and you understand it, and you understand your innate freedom. You understand yourself as God and love. But then you come back down into form, and the constriction, the aperture of your consciousness closes and constricts once again back into this form. And then many people have breakdowns because it's really hard coming back into form, coming back into density, coming back into limitation, and suddenly being back in the mirror realm where reality reflects you. It reflects what's within you. So if, like most of us, you hold trauma in your body, if you've experienced shame and blame and guilt and separation and fear, you will have many of these things within your system that overspill. And Buddha, he said there was the wheel of samsara. The wheel of samsara. It turns around. Okay, so when I talk about these deep dives I've done, these deep journeys I've done, for about 20 years, I would go to the place where Darius would naturally leave his body, and yet for some reason I wasn't allowed. I was held there. Could it have been my karma? Yeah, maybe. Could it have been my ignorance? Could it have been my inability to be okay with absolutely everything? Yeah, I would guess it probably would. And also I know it's different because I have also been beyond it several times. But in being held there at the very edge, at the very, what I call the firmament, it's like the very edge of the matrix, then I would see the workings of it. So it's hard to explain this in some ways. It's also very easy. So the firmament, the very edge of this realm, is like a mirror, and it reflects. It reflects what's in our minds, our hearts, our expressions, our responses, our actions and our reactions. Unfortunately, they are usually reactions. And the firmament, the mirror realm, it reflects our minds back at us. And so, yes, you're trapped. If you believe you're trapped, then yes, you're trapped. But the good news is, that's just a story. Nobody is trapped. Nobody is trapped here at all. We've come into a realm that's quite dense and heavy. Some have grown from darker realms up to this one, and this is the most open aperture and the most light they've ever been exposed to. Others have come from a much higher state of consciousness, or a much broader, wider aperture of experience and understanding and realization, and they've come down into the earth to support and assist with the raising of the frequency, because the earth has been a very dark place and it's needed help. The people here have needed help and support, because when your crown is shut and your root is shut and you truly believe that you're separate, life can be really hellish. We can do some terrible things to each other when we believe we're separate from each other. But as the energy and as the light and as the frequency in the realm that we're living in slowly increases, well, it feels quite quick actually, but as it increases and the aperture of our consciousness opens and we're able to understand greater comprehensions, we are able to bring down more complex geometries into our frequency, into our plasma system, into our bodies, which apparently are solid but we know they're not. We're able to slowly increase our understanding and understand that it's our minds and our emotional bodies that create the reality that we're stuck in. So if we wish to move through, if we wish to free ourselves, if we wish to liberate ourselves, this is our choice. We are completely able to do this. And yet it's not easy. It's much easier to stay stuck in the old patterns, in the same old shit. And that has been how it's been up until now. But change is coming. The frequency on Earth is rising, and this is affecting our biology. Soon, in the next few years, we're going to see changes that our rational mind won't be able to comprehend. But how do we get out of the matrix? So the firmament reflects our mind. So we have to transform our hearts and our minds. We have to generate compassion and love. We need to recognize who we truly are. Who are we truly? We are individual, unique expressions of God. We are co-creators. But it's not until we raise up and meet in the heart, it's not until we awaken our heart center, that we're able to access the highest and the lowest all together. We're able to be in that middle balance point and that coherence, which brings us into the flow state. It brings us into the ultimate connection with our true nature and our true self. And through our coherence, we're able to anchor in higher frequencies and higher states of being, higher ways of behaving and responding. So on this earth, for the last couple of thousand years at least, we have been horrific to each other. And it's no surprise that people are jealous and resentful and angry. And this is natural, but we have to move beyond it. We have to find a new way of working with it. Hey! And this is our path now. This is our practice. this is our job, and this is the inner work. So I will share more about this because it is something that I've got an extreme amount of understanding in, trust me. And also I think the last deep journey I did, no, it was the one before that, was the first time I was able to go to be in the firmament, to be in the mirror realm, and to fully stay with the horrors of our minds, the horrors of what we've done to each other, the accumulation. And there is a consciousness that is the mirror realm. And when I was with it long enough to not reject it, to not despise it, to not turn away from it and want to look away, I finally asked it, why? Why like this? And it said, it relaxed as if for the first time being seen. And it said to me, do you know how exhausting it is reflecting this shit back at you guys all the time? And I really felt it. You know, it's like even the mirror that reflects our realities and our inner gunk back at us is fatigued, it's exhausted, it needs a break. And luckily the great compassion, the great love that is the creation of all life also knows that it's time to make a change. So yeah, you're free, you are not trapped in this realm. This is not a prison planet, it's a training ground, and it's time to do the work. Okay, take care, peace.